the breeding ground of horror, where fiends not of this earth appear. Moments of terror, and how we relish them. A haunted mansion where actors, papier-mâché, and paint speak a language we know well, the language of horror. We learned it from superstitions, tales, comic books, but most of all, we learned it in those other halls of darkness. Grotesque images torn out of our own dark, our own earliest nightmares. Try as we may, we are never quite able to leave them behind. And that's the horror of it all. The great horror movies of bygone days are like extensions of nightmares, past and present. A secret word in the 1920 film, The Golem, gives magic power to a sage. So taken was Paul Wegener with the legend of an inanimate figure who becomes a champion against oppression that he 3 times turned it into film. Wegener's own impressive size enabled him to play the giant clay statue brought to life. The Golem set a pattern, defying the laws of God and man, even with good intentions, inevitably led to disaster. We learned, too, that beautiful women would never be safe with monsters. Also, in horror films, leading men are invariably ineffectual against monsters. In The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, also produced in Germany in 1920, horror took on a uniquely subjective cast. A sinister figure, Caligari reveals his strange powers over a sleepwalker. Seeking Trying to project the world of a psychotic, this film uses painted flats to create a threatening and surreal environment as Cesare, the somnambulist, goes forth to commit the murders commanded by his master. This scene was so unsettling that it helped make The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari one of the most discussed films of the 20s. An abiding dread that would be aroused repeatedly in horror films of the future, being attacked when we are most vulnerable, while we sleep. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari catapulted Conrad Veidt to world attention, and it bore home the axiom horror films would repeat: our monsters were invariably very human and vulnerable to beauty. One of horror's most reliable staples, guaranteed to produce dread in any audience, the story of the vampire. In 1922, moviegoers were mesmerized by the German-made Nosferatu, an early working of the Bram Stoker novel Dracula. This was no simple creature made from clay, no sleeping figure locked in a trance. This was the undead, a monster who retreated by day to his coffin, but who roamed by night to feed on human blood. In director Fritz Lang's Metropolis, a fantasy and horror film also from Germany, the heroine is trapped in the very world of the dead, the dark catacombs of a city in a far distant future. As always, the heroine's cries bring no rescue. Her villainous pursuer, the arch-heavy of the horror film, the mad scientist. A scene that would echo and re-echo in horror films to come. laboratory where a scientist dares imitate God as he transfers the very soul of a human being to give life to his robot creation. European horror films emphasize the supernatural. But in the United States, horror had a more realistic base. In 1920, a prohibition-conscious audience readily accepted that in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, even a single drink could lead to terrible consequences. Lon Chaney, one of the great actors of silent films, gave his men of sin 1,000 faces, each more fear-inspiring than the next. Chaney's pride was that he not only performed his own stunts, he also created and applied his often spectacular makeup. One of his greatest films, made in 1925, The Phantom of the Opera.
The important element is that much of it takes place in the semi-darkness of catacombs. In a way, the Paris Opera House is a symbol of the unconscious mind in which dwells monsters' desire, and this struck a resonant chord in many of the masculine members of the audience. Chaney's performance, because he spent much of the time wearing a mask, was a matter of ballet. He was a master, a consummate master of pantomime. Phantom of the Opera didn't have any overt supernatural implications, but we had a man who slept in a coffin, who lived in catacombs 5 levels below the Paris Opera House, and who masked himself to disguise a hideous face. And in a way, he pressed the buttons of an audience that at that time was very unaware of the sexual symbolism involved. But it registered nonetheless, because in effect the character of Chaney as portrayed in The Phantom of the Opera was that of a man who is ashamed or afraid of his own sexuality. Who conceals his monstrous desire, as it was termed in those days, under a mask. When it is revealed, the heroine recoils in fright from a kindly, gentle man who is now revealed as a hideous being.
A A 1927 American film that did frighten the blazes out of audiences, The Cat and the Canary. The dark, haunted mansion where terror could lurk in every corner became part of the growing language of horror. It was where anything could happen, and often did. Again, the leading man proved undependable. But at least in this film, he provided comic relief. A classic moment of horror and the source of countless nightmares. In 1931, Svengali, starring John Barrymore, was released. Sound had arrived, increasing immeasurably the ways films could influence the emotions of audiences. Svengali's true impact came from the unsettling demonstration of mind control from afar. Here was no mad scientist intent on creating life. This villain is able to take a life over.
Gentlemen, it might be as well to remember there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
These mysteries became a challenge for a new generation of filmmakers.